Have you ever wondered why, no matter how much you give, you still feel invisible and exhausted? In today's video, we'll peel back the hidden drain of constant availability and reveal the silent power you've been overlooking. As you watch, you'll discover the hidden cost of saying yes when your soul is screaming no, how setting an invisible boundary can transform your relationships overnight, the secret Jungian insight that turns silence into magnetic presence, practical steps to stop squandering your focus and start living with intention. Stay with me until the end, because in the final segment, I'll share a revolutionary technique that will allow you to say no without guilt, reclaim your peace without apology, and redefine your value. You'll hear real-life examples of what happens when people stop being everyone's emotional crutch and begin to stand in their power. Plus, you'll learn how to integrate your shadow to unlock unseen strengths and free yourself from the addiction to external validation. If you've ever felt taken for granted, overexposed, or desperately in need of a starting point for true self-respect, this video is your roadmap to transformation. Ready to become unforgettable where it matters? Let's dive in. If you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, please click the subscribe button and ring the notification bell to stay updated on all our latest content. The price you're paying to fit in is far higher than you realize. Every time you sacrifice your rest to meet others' expectations, a piece of you that desperately craves silence withers away. Every time you ignore that quiet, insistent voice of intuition just to avoid disappointing someone, you betray something infinitely more precious than any outside opinion: your inner judgment. In my experience, this relentless giving makes your heart ache with a hollow longing. I've watched friends crumble under the weight of unspoken needs, and I've felt it myself, the soul-crushing fatigue that comes from overextending your kindness until there's nothing left to give. It's gut-wrenching to admit, but the world rewards availability more than authenticity, and we've all been complicit in that destructive bargain. This is where one of modern psychology's most forgotten concepts steps in: self-loyalty. It sounds deceptively simple, yet so few of us practice it. It's undeniably easier to be loyal to others than to yourself. Easier to follow the crowd's script than to stand firm in an unpopular choice. Easier to hide in the mass than to walk alone with unwavering conviction. But let me be blunt, the easy path never leads to something profound. You didn't come into this life merely to be decorative, functional, or universally approved. You came to transform, to brave the difficult, the uncomfortable, the truly authentic. Carl Jung nailed it when he said loneliness isn't the absence of people, but the inability to speak what matters to you. And if you've ever felt that sharp sting surrounded yet empty, accompanied yet unseen, heard yet misunderstood, then you know exactly what I mean. As long as you're playing a role that isn't yours, the genuine connection will forever elude you. Here's the brutal truth: the more you give, the less people see you. The more present you are, the more you fade into the background. Because the world simply doesn't value what never disappears. You've been handing yourself away, exhausted and unasked, so long that absence may be the only language some understand. Sometimes, disappearing is the sole way to reclaim your worth. So ask yourself, will you keep begging for attention, or will you start cultivating respect? This is the crossroads where many falter. Facing this truth demands courage, the courage to let go, to disappoint, to make others uncomfortable. Yet it is precisely at this moment of uncomfortable clarity that your true power ignites power that depends on no one but you. That silence you dread? It isn't empty. It's revelation. It's the fertile pause where your hidden self begins to speak. And when you learn to dwell in that space, no longer running, no longer reacting, you'll discover that real transformation emerges only through discomfort, freedom only through loss, and respect only through unyielding boundaries. Many mistake this for selfishness or coldness, but I promise you, it is the opposite. Only when you're at peace with yourself can you truly give without emptying your soul. Only when you learn to hold yourself Can you hold others without collapsing? And that lesson comes only when you close doors, disconnect, and refuse to be everyone's default safe harbor. True generosity springs from abundance, not from lack. You've been giving from a place of scarcity, hungry for validation, terrified of being left out. But it's time to stop begging for space and start claiming it, not from ego, but from dignity. You cannot build a fulfilling life on connections that exist only as long as you comply, as long as you stay silent, as long as you yield. Being selective isn't rejection, it's respect. It's the profound act of choosing who deserves the most sacred resource you have, your energy. And I believe with every fiber of my being that honoring this truth will set you free. Here's a bombshell that struck me like a thunderclap. Overexposure wears you out just as ruthlessly as abandonment. When you spill yourself into every request, every demand, you lose your center. You become invisible to your soul, like a ghost haunting your own life. Every reluctant yes you offered out of obligation was secretly a no, you whispered to yourself. And if you keep that up, one day you'll wake in a stranger's body, having forgotten who you were before people-pleasing became your identity. But here's the whisper of hope I desperately want you to hear. It's never too late to come home to yourself. You can gently close that door you've left ajar for everyone else. Take a deep, shuddering breath and declare, now it's my turn. When you finally draw that boundary trembling, though, your hand might be, you won't just shift how the world treats you, you'll transform how you see yourself. And trust me, that shift is seismic. So many of us grew up believing that love demands silent sacrifice, surely. You felt that too. But real love, the kind that honors your spirit, is built on clear emotional boundaries, not on endless capitulation. If you can't even discern where your giving stops and your resentment begins, you're not in a loving relationship, you're lost in an emotional debt you can never repay. I've seen brilliant, generous souls break themselves trying to be there, only to discover they were abandoning their own needs all along. You've silenced your hopes, ignored your discomfort, and smiled through storms you wanted to scream into. You've whispered, "It's fine," while your heart howled enough. And that persistent self-betrayal comes at an invisible cost. Each concession chips away at your essence until you look in the mirror and find emptiness. Not because you lacked love, but because you gave away every last drop of yourself. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons helpful, please comment number 1 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. Listen, reclaiming your peace isn't selfish. It's an act of radical self-loyalty. The world may flinch when you say no, but your spirit will finally stand tall. And that, my friend, is the bravest choice you'll ever make. While you're pouring out every drop of yourself, people are standing by hungry for what they can take, rather than what they can give. It's not malicious, it's habitual. You unknowingly taught them you're always at their beck and call, that your yes is automatic, that you'll rush in to fix and rescue without question. But I believe you're stronger than that. It's time to break the cycle. Respect can't be demanded, it must be earned and built brick by brick, absence by absence, boundary by boundary, through those silences that leave others squirming. Only when you step back will some finally grasp how precious your presence truly is. Yes, pulling away will sting. Watching relationships you once held dear collapse can feel like a dagger to the chest. You'll face the sobering truth that many stood by you only when you were useful. I've witnessed this heartbreak, friends vanishing the moment I stopped being their emotional crutch, and I've carried that ache myself. But here's the liberating revelation. The pain of losing false connections can never match the agony of losing yourself. You're here, still reading these words for a reason. This moment is no accident. It's your invitation to reclaim your voice, the one you buried under a mountain of shoulds, under the weight of others' expectations, under 1,000 gazes that never really saw you. Carl Jung spoke of the shadow, the part of us we repress until it feels alien. I've felt that shadow lean in, whispering truths I dared not speak. That shadow holds your power to say enough, to stand firm, to honor your intuition qualities you tucked away for fear of being too much. But darling, it's time to be too much. Too luminous, too unwavering, too authentic. The world doesn't need more compliant souls. It craves conscious beings, people who refuse to sacrifice their peace for a seat at the table. People who can vanish when their spirit feels exposed, who can remain silent amid the clamor, who can walk away when staying costs their mental health. That person? It's you. You felt it stirring in your chest, that tiny ember of defiance, that yearning for self-sovereignty. Choosing yourself isn't a slogan, it's a revolution. And it's not waged against the world, but against the conditioned you, the one who believed worth equaled availability, who thought absence was betrayal. Every boundary you draw is a seed of liberation. Every silence you hold is a declaration of power. Every time you refuse to justify or explain, you're chanting the most potent mantra of all, I matter. Here's a fierce truth few dare to face. Most of your relationships exist because you were available, not because you were cherished. I know how raw that realization feels, the tightness in your throat, the tremor in your hands as you envision what life would look like if you simply stopped answering every call. But that discomfort isn't your enemy, it's your intuition screaming for change. You can't remain everyone's emotional pillar while your foundation crumbles. Nobody will restore the time you surrendered. Nobody will heal the wounds you smiled through. Nobody will compensate for every unspoken need you silenced. The responsibility falls to you. So, stop excusing your exhaustion with half-hearted phrases like, "That's just me," or "I don't want drama." No, you're not a victim of character. You shaped this by surviving, by clinging to fragile ties for fear of rejection. But the price has been too steep. The more you adapt to please others, the less room there is for the real you to breathe. There comes a moment when the soul drowns, not from lack of air, but from the avalanche of concessions. I've known that suffocating collapse, that moment when I stared in the mirror and barely recognized the person looking back. And it terrified me, but it also taught me that self-betrayal has a price no amount of approval can pay. So here's my heartfelt plea. Reclaim yourself. Close the door on demands that drain you. Breathe deeply in the silence that once frightened you. Say no, not as an act of defiance, but as an affirmation of self-loyalty. Because in the end, genuine love, both from others and from yourself, grows only where emotional clarity reigns. It cannot flourish in the shadows of silent sacrifice. Trust me when I say, you deserve connections rooted in mutual respect, not in your perpetual availability. You deserve spaces where your absence is felt as a loss, not relief. You deserve to be seen, honored, and protected with the same fierce care you're finally learning to give to yourself. This is your moment of transformation. Embrace it and watch your world change. Carl Jung captured it perfectly when he declared, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." Yet, I've learned often the hard way that this privilege carries a steep toll. It asks you to let go of relationships that no longer serve your truth, to walk away from opportunities that demand you compromise your values, to step out of circles that applaud your conformity rather than your courage. It asks you to choose authenticity over reputation, to risk the uneasy glances of others, rather than beg for respect you don't believe you deserve. In my own life, I've agonized over that choice, clinging to familiar faces, clinging to familiar roles, terrified that casting them aside would leave me empty, unworthy. But what I discovered is that respect isn't a handout delivered to those who fold under pressure. It's the standing ovation reserved for those brave souls who dare to walk away, who dare to disappoint, who dare to shatter the illusion of comfort. So let me ask you, are you ready to embark on this perilous path? I won't sugarcoat it. It's lonely, it's raw, and it can feel like a betrayal of everything you thought you needed. You'll mourn the loss of people who celebrated your compliance, of opportunities that rewarded your silence, of a version of yourself who survive by numbing every heartbeat of desire. That version must die if you're ever going to feel truly alive. And I know that sounds terrifying. It made my chest tighten, my throat close up, and my mind race with what-ifs. But in the ashes of that old self, you'll find something no one ever warned you about. True loneliness isn't a void. It's a sacred echo chamber where your authentic self finally has space to breathe. No longer is solitude the enemy. It's the birthplace of your rebirth. Real creation doesn't emerge from crowded rooms, but from the quiet chambers of your heart. Validation no longer comes from applause, but from the silent nod of your integrity. Yet most of us choke at the thought of being alone because we fear the truths we'll hear when the noise stops, the unspoken dreams, the hidden wounds, the fierce flicker of a self long buried. We've become slaves to distraction scrolling feeds, answering urgent texts, drowning in the chaos of everyone else's demands, because we dread that moment of stillness when our voice might finally speak. Here's the most liberating secret I've uncovered. Once you learn to be fully present with yourself, abandonment loses its sting. No one can truly leave you if you never abandon you. Security, calm, and strength aren't gifts granted by the outside world. They are cultivated in the desert of your own company, in the brave decision to stand alone without feeling broken. Look at those people who magnetize every room. They aren't the life of the party. They're the ones so firmly anchored in themselves that nothing external can sway them. That, my friend, is the power of autonomy, and it begins the moment you decide to stop fleeing from your echo and start listening to the wild, beautiful song waiting to be heard within you. I've always been captivated by those rare souls who can give without feeling empty, who can show up fully, yet never lose sight of who they are, who can pour out love without pouring themselves away. Imagine becoming that person, the one who shares joy freely but doesn't depend on others for fulfillment, who stands beside friends in their darkest hour without feeling swallowed by their pain, who loves so deeply yet never forgets to nurture the flame of their spirit. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons helpful, please comment number 2 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. Because true revolution isn't an external battle. It's the silent shift that happens inside you. The moment you decide to stop reacting and start choosing. That moment you draw a line in the sand and proclaim, "I am more than anyone else's need." That declaration of self-respect, that firm tether to your own, is what transforms ordinary kindness into extraordinary presence. The day you realize you don't have to be everywhere to be unforgettable, that's when the world's frantic pull loses its grip on your soul. I've felt the exhaustion that comes not from doing too much, but from doing with no intention, scattering your energy across 1,000 tasks, responding reflexively to every demand, saying yes when a brave no would save you. Saying no is not a battle cry. It's an invisible fortress, a shield that guards your most sacred resource, your focus. Your focus is that precious spark inside you, the one that lights up the moments that truly matter. You're not broken. You're simply drained. Drained by a flood of obligations, by being present in places that no longer resonate with your heart, by giving yourself away to people who don't even know what to do with your gifts. I know because I've stood in that same storm of endless requests, my voice drowned out by the cacophony of everyone else's urgencies. Carl Jung called individuation the deepest journey of transformation, and I believe he was right. This journey isn't about becoming cold or distant. It's about becoming whole. It's about stopping the endless fragmentation of your spirit to stand solid in your truth. It's about choosing scarcity, not as a manipulative trick, but as an act of profound respect for your time, your peace, your very soul. And here's the raw, unvarnished truth. When you stop being constantly available, the mirror shifts. You start to see how much you've betrayed your own needs in the name of helping others. You realize that respect isn't measured by your attendance record, but by the magnitude of your presence when you do show up. That insight, that shimmering moment of clarity changes everything. You no longer apologize for your absence. You honor your absence. You no longer feel guilty for your silence. You cherish it. Because in the hush of your heartbeat, you finally remember who you were born to be. I've always been struck by those rare souls who step onto the stage of life just once and leave a mark so profound it echoes forever. It isn't because they shout the loudest or linger the longest, but because their presence vibrates with such crystalline clarity, such unwavering alignment with their truth, that you simply can't look away. Imagine becoming that person, someone whose energy is so pure, so centered, that every room they enter feels lighter, every conversation they have feels deeper, and every silence they hold speaks volumes. This isn't about vanishing for drama's sake. It's about cultivating a sacred inaccessibility to the banal, so you can be wholly available for the meaningful. You can't fulfill your purpose if you're trapped in a web of trivial chatter, bouncing from one distraction to the next. You need to choose to ruthlessly clear away the noise so that your soul can breathe. And yes, each choice carries its toll. You must relinquish commitments that don't serve you. Step away from people who don't celebrate your essence, and allow your absence to speak louder than any explanation ever could. When you finally dare to pull back from the unnecessary, you'll watch the universe itself begin to realign. The right friendships crystallize with startling clarity. Opportunities that once seemed elusive now glide into view. Not because you chased them, but because you stopped suffocating them with your overexposure. There's a fierce beauty in that stillness. Silence becomes magnetic. It crafts attention that commands respect, ignites curiosity, and makes others lean in, eager to understand the mystery of your quiet power. Yet this transformation demands courage. You'll have to endure the sting of lonely moments when no one notices your absence. You'll have to resist the urge to rush back into the fray, to explain yourself, to apologize for preserving your peace. True power is forged in those guilt-free retreats. In every no you deliver without flinching. In every boundary you uphold with calm conviction. You weren't born to fill calendars. You were born to leave footprints on hearts. I'm not talking about fleeting fame or hollow applause. I'm talking about the subtle shift that occurs when your energy, your gaze, your deliberate silence becomes someone's turning point. That depth of presence isn't measured by how often you appear, but by the integrity you carry when you do. Authenticity demands a high price, being misunderstood, facing disappointment, even walking solitary paths. But the reward peace that no storm can breach, sovereignty over your own life, and a crystal clear vision of who you are far outweighs any fleeting comfort you leave behind. I've always been moved by Carl Jung's piercing insight that self-realization is the act of becoming who you were always meant to be, the fullest version of your potential. It isn't about meeting everyone else's needs or obeying the world's checklist. It's about stripping off the masks, the half-truths, the excuses, until you stand face to face with your essence. But here's the truth I've learned. Arriving at that place of raw authenticity requires radical silence, a deliberate retreat from the ceaseless clamoring of life. When you're perpetually on call, incessantly reachable, you lose the inner stillness required to hear your heartbeat. You become deaf to your deepest desires, numb to your own emotions, unable to filter the noise from the signal. I confess, I once mistook freedom for the license to do whatever popped into my mind. I chased every distraction, convinced that busyness equaled liberation. But true freedom, I now feel in my bones, is quite different. It's the serene power of not needing to act on every impulse, of standing so firmly at peace with yourself that you no longer crave applause or external proof of your worth. Imagine being so grounded in your truth that you could slip in and out of any room, any conversation, without anxiety that you might be invisible. You'd know that your presence leaves a mark precisely. It is rare because it is chosen, intentional, and unforced. This kind of impact, what I call conscious resonance, only flourishes when you reject the habit of people-pleasing and embrace living in complete coherence with your values. When you no longer negotiate your boundaries to be nice, but hold them fiercely to protect your well-being, your life becomes a masterpiece of integrity. Ask yourself, what signature are you leaving on every interaction? What constant yeses are building a castle of obligation, instead of the legacy of your authentic voice? Here's the painful reality almost no one warns you about. Most people don't leave legacies of meaning, they leave a legacy of burnout. They scatter so much of themselves trying to fit in that all that remains is emotional exhaustion. But you can shatter that pattern. You can become someone who touches lives with a whisper instead of a shout, who transforms situations by simply embodying wholeness, who guides others quietly from that deep center of self-alignment. To do this, you don't vanish from the world, you reappear within yourself. Paradoxically, the more you become scarce to the superficial, the more available you are to the essential. People feel it in the spaces you leave behind. They notice the depth under your silence. Rarity in today's frantic society is magnetic. Someone who isn't desperate for attention, who needs no performance to be seen, becomes a beacon precisely because they stand alone, anchored in their truth. This path isn't for the faint of heart. It means risking misunderstanding, enduring the prick of disappointment, sometimes walking a solitary road, yet what you gain peace that no storm can unsettle, sovereignty over your own life, and clarity of purpose far outweighs what you release. I've felt the sting of solitude, yes, but I've also felt the exhilarating rush of true self-possession. You can become one of those rare souls who can share without surrendering, who can show up fully without losing themselves, who can love deeply without pouring themselves away. It begins the moment you dare to say, "I am not always available," the moment you choose silence over compulsion, solitude over the false security of constant companionship. That is the revolution. Jung spoke of a quiet but unstoppable uprising of the self. And trust me, once you taste that freedom, you'll never settle for anything less. I've come to believe that the most powerful revolution you'll ever wage isn't fought in crowded streets or boardrooms. It's waged in the silent chambers of your own heart. It begins the very instant you refuse to be a puppet of other people's demands, and instead choose to be the master of your presence. That moment you draw a line and say, "I no longer react, I decide." You claim a territory of self-respect so sacred that the world's frantic pull simply loses its grip on your soul. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons helpful, please comment number 3 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. Think about how much you race from one obligation to the next, desperately patching every void with your presence, your eager approval, your quick validation. I've sprinted that same endless course, and let me tell you, exhaustion isn't born of doing too much, it's born of doing without purpose. Your energy leaks through every crack of indecision, every half-hearted yes offered without thought, every reflexive reply that denies you the peace to pause. Saying no isn't an act of defiance, it's a whispered prayer to your vital spark, a protective shield around the one precious resource no one else can touch, your focus. I know what it feels like to mistake that fatigue for personal failure, as if there was something broken inside you, when in truth, you're simply drowning in too much availability. There's nothing wrong with you. You're just running dry. You've been present where you didn't belong, giving your energy to people and projects that didn't honor your worth, silencing your own needs in the name of helping. I've been there. I've stared into the mirror after another day of compliance, my optimism dwindling, wondering how I lost myself in the process. Carl Jung called this journey individuation, the profound process of becoming whole. To me, it means no longer chopping yourself into fragments, each piece offered to whoever asked, but instead standing fully intact, a singular, unwavering self. But wholeness demands a choice, to become scarce. And I don't mean scarce as a manipulative trick, but scarce as an act of deep self-respect. You must pull back your presence, not to punish others, but to honor your limits. Your time is finite. Your soul needs breathing room. Your peace cannot be bartered away. Real scarcity is unmistakable. It's felt in the hush that follows your absence, in the way people pause, curious, when you finally say no. It's respected because it comes from authenticity, not theatrics. And when you embrace that scarcity, when you stop diffusing your light and instead concentrate on it, you'll discover that you don't need to be everywhere to leave an imprint. You need only to be precisely where your essence matters, shining with intention. Only then will you wield the true power of presence. When you finally stop answering every call, every text, every demand on your time, something almost miraculous happens. The world around you shifts, and more startlingly, so does the world within you. In that first trembling moment of silence, when you resist the urge to explain your absence, you feel a jolt of something profound. It's as if your heartbeat has room to speak again, and you realize that your energy is not an infinite pool to be plunged into by anyone at any time. I'll be honest, at first, it feels terrifying. I remember the knot in my stomach the first time I declined a request that drained me, the guilt that whispered I was being selfish. But what followed was electric. I saw in the eyes of others a new form of respect, a curious pause that said, "She knows her worth." More importantly, I felt it in myself. A fierce pride swelled in my chest as I recognized how many times I'd betrayed my own needs just to spare someone else a moment's discomfort. The realization stung, but it also ignited a fierce self-loyalty. I no longer needed permission to guard my peace. Consider the people who enter your life but once and leave an unforgettable imprint. They don't shout the loudest or command the longest stage. Their secret lies in the crystalline purity of their presence. Their energy is so impeccably aligned with who they are that every gesture resonates like a bell toll. That, my friend, is your calling, not to occupy every space, but to inhabit each moment with absolute intentionality. Your presence becomes a rich, weighty gift, a silence that says more than any hurried conversation ever could. This isn't about dramatic disappearances or punishing others with your withdrawal. It's about cultivating a sacred inaccessibility to anything superficial, so you can be fully available for what truly matters: your purpose, your passions, your deepest connections. You cannot journey into the heart of your calling if you're dragged through 1,000 hollow obligations. You must choose, and each choice, while it asks for sacrifice, also sings with declaration. This is where I stand. The moment you courageously withdraw from the unnecessary, something extraordinary happens. The universe reconfigures around your clarity. The right people, those whose souls resonate with yours, step forward. Opportunities that once felt elusive now drift within reach. Not because you chased them, but because you stopped smothering them with desperation. Trust me, I've watched doors swing open when I finally learned to walk away from the wrong ones. Never underestimate the power of silence. In a world that never stops screaming for your attention, the one who masters quiet becomes magnetic. That hush creates anticipation, commands respect, and beckons others to lean in, hungry to understand the source of your calm. It takes courage, and yes, there is a price. You'll have to let go of places where you're taken for granted, step out of conversations where your spirit isn't honored, and allow your absence to speak volumes unspoken. But here's the beautiful truth. True power is born in that guilt-free retreat, in every unapologetic no you muster, in every boundary you uphold without excuse. Hold that line and watch your world transform, not outwardly in flashy accolades, but inwardly in the quiet sanctuary of your becoming. That is where you always belonged. You weren't put on this earth to busy yourself with calendars and to-do lists. You were born to leave lasting footprints on the hearts and minds of others. And I don't mean the fleeting kind of fame that fades with the next headline or the next social media scroll. I'm talking about those rare, indelible moments when your very energy, your intent gaze, or the hush of your presence becomes a before and after for someone else. That kind of impact isn't crafted by showing up every single day. It's forged by the profound alignment of your actions with your deepest truth. True presence isn't measured in hours or appearances. It's measured in the ripples you create, the emotional echoes you leave behind. And for your presence to carry that kind of weight, it must stand on an unshakable foundation of integrity. You simply cannot build a meaningful legacy if your life is dictated by other people's expectations. If every sunrise finds you scrambling to respond, if every decision you make is a concession disguised as a compromise. Authenticity comes with a price tag few are willing to pay. It means embracing misunderstanding when your convictions aren't popular. It means disappointing people who only want the version of you that's easy to love. It often means walking a solitary path where the only applause you hear is your quiet heartbeat affirming, "This is who I am." But believe me when I say that the return on that investment is priceless, boundless peace, an unassailable sense of sovereignty over your own life, and a clarity so bright it banishes every lingering doubt. Carl Jung put it best when he described self-realization as the process of becoming what you are truly meant to be. Not what your family needs, not what society demands, but the pure essence that emerges once you strip away every mask, every lingering fear, every half-truth you've ever told yourself. To reach that place, you must carve out deep silence, an intentional retreat from the ceaseless noise of the world. Because if you remain stubbornly available, you'll never hear the whisper of your soul. You'll never feel the subtle stirrings of your innermost desires. You'll never build the filter you need to distinguish the essential from the trivial. And here's a truth that upends everything you thought you knew about freedom. It isn't the license to do anything you please. It's the sublime comfort of not having to do anything at all. Real freedom is that serene power that emanates from a being so at peace with itself that no external validation can shake it. It's the grace of slipping into any room, any conversation, and yet knowing that if you go unnoticed, you've already succeeded. Because you understand something that changes the game. It's not about being omnipresent, it's about being unforgettable when you choose to appear. And that's the journey we've taken together, uncovering the hidden cost of constant availability, learning to protect our most sacred resource, our focus, and embracing the fierce power of consciously chosen scarcity. Now it's your turn. What insight has struck you the most? What single practice will you commit to weaving into your daily life to guard your energy and honor your boundaries? Share one thing you've learned so far and how you'll put it into action in the comments below. If you like this video, please leave your comment below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.